And look, I know that man didn't go out that morning to hurt me or anybody. He genuinely didn't. There was a mistake made. He panicked. Whatever his thought process is, I'll never know. But there was no point in me wondering and thinking about it. It wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I gave him his forgiveness, and I just needed to move on and focus on recovering.
Welcome to Chasing Rabbits, the space where we sit down with women who refuse to play small, who rewrite the rules, and who show us what's possible when we listen to that inner voice that says, there's more. I am your host, Alicia. I am a runner, a yoga teacher, a mountain lover, a coach, a retreat host, and a general jack of all trades. But here, my goal is to get you inspired by other women and to make you realize and see the power you have to inspire other people around you. In today's episode, I am chatting to Olivia Keating, and this introduction has to be quick and short, but I don't know if I can do it. If you don't know Olivia already, she cheated death. 10 years ago, she was in a hit and run where a man crashed into her bike and sent her flying 10 feet above the ground, where she hit her head off the speed limit sign, and then she fell down onto a stone wall. When the ambulance arrived, the surgeon who was in the ambulance said that she shouldn't be alive, that with the amount of breakages, she should not be alive, and he had to put her into induced coma straight away just to save her life. And he did. She spent loads of time in the hospital, multiple surgeries, and it took her a long time to learn how to walk. She's been through hell, but in all of that, she kept her spirit so high. She is so positive. She's absolutely incredible. She knew that she has to fight. She knew that if she is to get back to her life, she has to give 100%. And she did. And she is back. She's back running, which is absolutely incredible. It is so inspiring. She's back running, and she doesn't just run. She goes all around the world and runs Arctic Spine. She runs ultra marathons in the desert. She does all these things, and her goal is to run in every possible environment in the world. So listen to her story and listen to the chats. She is absolutely incredible, and she will definitely leave you feeling lighter and really inspired to go out there and do whatever it is that challenges you. Enjoy. And we're on. Olivia Keating, welcome to the show. I am very excited to have you on. Thank you for giving me your time, because I know how precious it is, especially this time of the year. Olivia, I only realized this morning actually that last month it was 10 years since your accident, which is massive. It's a whole decade, and you have done so much, and your recovery from the accident is absolutely, it's incredible. But before we talk about the accident, I would like to ask you about you before it. So who was Olivia before that accident? Because I know that you ran before, you've done quite a few marathons before the accident. So just let us in to that Olivia before the 2nd of June 2016.
Well, of course. Listen, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on. It's absolutely a pleasure. But before the accident, I suppose before the 2nd of June, that day that kind of changed my life forever, I was working as a customer service manager and I was getting into a bit of project work. I loved work. I was a workaholic. I obviously, now looking back on it, devoted way too much time to work. Um, when I could in my spare time, I had, maybe I think it was probably back in 2013, maybe 11, kind of really started running. But at the time, I was also smoking, and I was using running to help me, give them up. And initially, I was thinking I can do both, and obviously, I couldn't. But I had five, again, probably a bit much, but I had five Newfoundland dogs at the time. I had three cats. I was married. I was very lucky. I had managed to build a beautiful house and I was living out in the countryside. Um, so life was brilliant. But it was all, I suppose, it was work, then tried to fit the training in and, so it was quite manic, I suppose, now looking back on it. I had about 26 marathons done at that stage. I had done two small ultras. I think there was a 60k and I think a 50 and a 60k. I think I had done at that stage. And I also had the opportunity with work. I was so lucky. There was five guys in the UK and there was one man in Ireland attempting to do the Jungle Ultra, which is a 230 kilometre 5 day self-sufficient race to the Amazon jungle. So they saw me one day and they knew I was running and I was injured at the time and they said, would you do it? And I was like, I'd love to, but I can't, I'm just after getting married. I have a new house. And so the president of the company rang me and he said he would sponsor and pay for me to go. So yeah, so I think that was how I had the opportunity to go. It was really out of my price range. It was, something really crazy. I think I had about 8 months to train. Now I was fit and I was physically fit, but back then I think strength training wasn't huge. The way people now are incorporating so much different activities, not just running. Whereas, I was out for an old cycle every now and then. I maybe went to the gym once a week. For sure, I was useless. I didn't know what I was doing. Um, but I managed to take on that race, and it was probably one of the craziest. It was beautiful. Like everything, it was like going back in time. There was parts you're kind of saying, "Oh God, I wonder has there any human even been through this?" Part of the jungle. It was just so remote and like everything was trying to kill you. I thought they were lying and joking about the jags and there might have been the odd I think it was pumas as well or something. And I genuinely thought it was a joke until I saw the jag poo, and I was like,
Whoa.
okay, maybe they're not lying about that. But the snakes, the tarantulas, the spiders, everything, and like they were everywhere. They were just, and I'm terrified of spiders, and they were just, there was walls of webs. It was probably just, the plants. Plants were trying to kill you. Everything was. But it was just an amazing experience. So as soon as I finished that, I was saying, okay, I was like, this is something I need to do again. And so I was looking, and they had an adventure then through the Swedish Arctic Circle. So they had one called the Ice Ultra. So I was looking at it and I was like, oh my God, that's completely different. There'd be no spiders. There'd be,
And
I knew it was going
minus
to be a
40,
really
but
huge site. I know. Plus, I hate the cold. I really do not like the cold. Like this weather we're having now, I'm in my element. But it was, it was just the challenge. And, it was putting myself completely out of what's normal, what I can train for here even. Um, so I had that signed up for just at the time of the accident. But I was also getting ready. Even though I had done 26, I kept missing the Cork City Marathon. And it's my own local marathon. I'm from the city originally. I'm from the north side. And I just kind of, it was always something on. So I had signed up, and it was the first time genuinely I was thinking, I'm going to do this for time. I'm going to see, can I get the 4 hours? And I was putting the work in, and I think I even, didn't do marathon for like 6 months, which for me at the time was very unusual. Um, and a couple of weeks before, I just overdid it, and I had an Achilles injury. So I was on the bike. So I would cycle to work, or sorry, I'd drive to work, and I was working in Clonakilty at the time, and I would cycle from Clonakilty to Bandon and back just before work. So I was getting a real good, still keeping up my cardio. So I was doing that, let's say, for maybe about a week to 2 weeks leading up to the race. And on the 2nd of June, it was the same. I got into the car that morning, packed up the bike, got everything ready. Beautiful, gorgeous, sunny day. And here I was thinking I'm going to get a gorgeous tan. And I think, like everybody else, and nobody ever thinks that they're going to be that person. Like, I think we all probably think we're invincible. Now obviously, since that day, my thinking has slightly changed, but that day just seemed like every other day.
Yeah. And I was reading a little bit about it and what you said and what the doctor who arrived at the scene said. And so just for people who don't know, you were cycling on the road and an 80-year-old man driving a car hit the bike and drove off. And you didn't like, it's not like you just fell off the bike. You were literally, and I'm just quoting what I read on the internet, which said you were catapulted into the air. You hit the speed limit sign with your head, and then you fell and ended up on the stone wall. And when the doctor arrived to the scene, he said you shouldn't be alive. It's
Yeah. Again.
like it's
Yeah.
goosebumps all over my body when I even think about it. You had 27 different broken bones in your face. Like it's absolute it's just unimaginable. And I'm not going to go into details of what I read because it's just yeah, it's just horrible. But one thing, and you just said about the tan, um what you said in one of I think it was one of the articles, is that you don't really remember much from that day. You just remember that you are going for a cycle. It was a nice day and you're gonna get a nice tan. When, when, when did you, when did you wake up? Because they had to put you into induced coma because they were afraid that you're not gonna survive. Like, when did you actually wake up? What is your first memory after the accident?
It was a couple of weeks later. I'd say probably about 3 weeks. So Dr. Jason from West Cork Rapid Response, he put me into an induced coma in a ditch at the side of the road. When you think of what they can do nowadays.
Yeah.
I was very lucky. The ambulance crew were there, but they knew I wasn't going to make it to the hospital. So that's why he had to be called in to put me, into that induced coma. Otherwise, I was gone. So I was incredibly lucky. I had people there looking after me, passers-by who were driving past and seen or heard something, and they came back and they stayed with me. So I'm forever grateful to those people. But I have no memory. So even when I was kind of hearing about it myself, it just didn't feel like it was me. It just felt like somebody was telling me a story, because you still don't see yourself as that person. But when they were waking me from the induced coma, the drugs they put you on are a bit crazy, right? So for a week or two, you are literally all over the place. You genuinely, it was just mad, but it was drip fed to me. So I think initially I was told, you fell off your bike. So I was like, okay, broken arm, broken leg, 6 to 8 weeks, I'll be grand. And like I couldn't physically. Now, even though I couldn't walk, it still wasn't registering with me because the brain injury was so severe at the time. Like, there was just things that, I wasn't copping onto. And eventually they told me it was an elderly man. I think at the time he was about 84. Um, and unfortunately, as you said, hit from behind. Um, and look, I know that man didn't go out that morning to hurt me or anybody. He genuinely didn't. There was a mistake made. He panicked. Um, Whatever his thought process is, I'll never know. But there was no point in me wondering and thinking about it. It wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I gave him his forgiveness, and I just needed to move on and focus on recovering. Um, but it was it was weeks, it genuinely, like, even though I was being drip fed everything, they eventually said, okay, it was an older man, and I was saying, okay, God love us, sure, he's probably up to 90 now, worried about me, and I was like, just, and I was like, let him know I'm okay, and they were, yeah, we will, and then eventually they said it was a hit and run, and look, that's something that will, no matter what, it will always stay with me. Like, have I learned to deal with it and carry it? Absolutely, but it's something. If I hear it on the radio, or I get, it's like the heebie-jeebies. It's just this feeling, and I kind of just need to get away from people for the day and just get my head together again, because it's like, I remember a friend of mine was saying, like, why are they always interviewing you? And I was like, I'm probably the only one that lived. With hit and runs, generally, unfortunately, most people don't live, and that's why people panic and leave the scene. Whereas I did live. I wasn't willing to die. So yeah, it was difficult. It was quite difficult to deal with. But I think initially, I really could not see the full extent of my injuries. I was in a wheelchair, but I couldn't use the wheelchair because my left arm was so badly damaged, and my shoulder, everything. Um, so I couldn't use this arm for, oh, I'd say I was like, I could move it like that or a little bit forward, after about a year and a half. So it was nearly 2 years before I could really start even lifting it up a little. And there was so much stuff put in, and they had to take it all out and then re-put it back in. So it was a long journey, but it probably wasn't until I went up to the National Rehab in Dunleary, and they put me into the brain injury unit, and I was like, why are you putting me in here? I was like, it's my arm, it's my leg, I need to. I was in such denial. And I think, in a way, my body was trying to protect me. My brain was probably trying to protect me. It was just allowing me to, you know, not
Take
so
it
much accept the
one step at a
information, but
time. Just take it
take it
take
in.
it in
Yeah,
slowly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was up there when I was up in the national rehab. It was really then starting to sink in. Okay, this isn't something that I'm going to recover from. This isn't something, that I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to be going back to work, and then you're kind of faced with all the challenges that you may have, and there's a lot of unknowns initially with a brain injury. You could be anywhere between 2 to 5 years before you fully understand what the actual impact is and what you're going to have to live with. And um, with physical injuries, as you know yourself, you put the work in, you do the physio, you do all of that. But with a brain injury, it's the complete opposite. You have to let it rest. You have to give it time. And I didn't initially. I was, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. And the more I did, the worse I was getting. And I was so tired and I was so exhausted. But um, in time, when I started accepting what had happened, I still had no idea what the outcome was going to be or how well I would recover from everything that I went through. But um, it did definitely, it took a lot of time to accept.
And was it initially, when you were told that it was a hit and run, was it anger that you felt, or was it disappointment? What was it?
I think, like, which is surprising because I really get angry. Normally, that's my default emotion. I go straight to anger. Um, but I think it was because he was an elderly man, and again, this man was a very well respected person in the community and stuff. So I didn't know him, but I kind of understood why he did what he did. I think my problem was because there had to be a court case over it, because it was the DPP just went ahead. I had no choice in this matter. I asked them not to prosecute. I said, I'm not having that on my conscience, but they didn't care. The injuries were
Too
life
severe,
threatening.
like,
So it was, Yeah, they were so severe. So I remember kind of saying, just take them off the road, take the license, never allow drive again, and please just leave it at that. But it went on for so long, and I think down to solicitors and God knows what else. The stories were changing a lot, and then that's what killed me. It was so upsetting to know that here you are, knowing that your life is destroyed forever, and you're giving somebody forgiveness, and then they keep. There was no I did this, coming out initially. There was nothing like that happening, and that's all I was kind of looking for. It wasn't. It was an
You were
accident,
looking for somebody to say,
accident.
I am very sorry, I did this, I panicked. Just somebody to be honest with you and
Yeah,
just tell you,
something. Yeah,
yeah,
and that was, and I think I could have. So, like, I won't lie. There was probably 2.5 years. I thought it was something I don't really probably speak about much, but like that, those 2.5 years, they were just. It was just like turmoil. It was so hard because you're kind of you're trying to at that stage. I'm still figuring out what I can and can't do. I'm going through like this really really tough recovery, and everything else around my life was falling apart. And I was like going, I was like, just give me a break. I just can just say it was me and that was it. So, but as I said, look, it was for me. It was much easier just to forgive and try and forget. And for me, it just became I can't get bogged down in this. I have to focus on recovery. Um, it wasn't going to do me any purpose. It wasn't going to help me in any way. So, like as I said, normally I would be real anger. That would be the first thing. But I think it was just disappointment. You're just sad. You're just upset. Um, like there's a feeling, and I have managed to speak to another hit and run victim. But it's kind of like this. Why didn't you stop? I'm not a bad person. Like why did you leave me there to die? And there's a lot of that questioning goes on in your head, and it can really drag you down a horrible place. So you could just feel it starting, and I was like, okay, you have to stop. You have to forget. You have to forgive and move on. And I think I was so determined to recover and physically recover. I had to just kind of say, right, that has to go over here now, and I'm not going to worry about it for a while. I need to focus on this. So, um, that was kind of probably how I dealt with it. That's how I dealt with everything. I just, no matter what was going on in my life around me, I was like, okay, just keep focusing on the recovery. And it just gave me something to do all the time. So yeah, and as I said, look, it's an unfortunate thing. It's obviously not very nice when you're the person who has to live and suffer with it. But it's something that I've learned to accept. I've come to peace with, and it's definitely not something I ever focus on anymore.
and as you say, there was the more important thing to focus on was yourself, your body, and going
Yeah,
coming back to your not normal life, because it would never be normal, the norm that you known before. It would be different, but just to life, to live your life.
yeah.
And it must be, how was the recovery? Because it was a good few years since you had to learn how to walk, how to use your body again. Your brain, like your brain had to learn how to function again in the body and everything. How long did it take until you were able to go out there and be somehow physically active? And I'm not talking about running, but to even go for a walk or enjoy the outside, not on a wheelchair.
Yeah, and I think what kind of I think really helped me in my recovery was the fact that I couldn't use my arm, so I couldn't be in a wheelchair. I couldn't use it. So what they had to do is give me like this lead. So I was in a chair if someone was there to push me, and that was fine. But so what I had was this kind of like it was like a crutch, but you lean over onto it. So you're leaning one side of your body and you're using that. So what I did, straight away was I remember going up to the local. I was living in Clon at the time, and I went to the local swimming pool. And I, hobbled in, and I was like, I know I'm probably the biggest insurance risk on the planet, but I was like, I need to do pool walking. I need to recover. There's all this. And they were amazing. They were absolutely fantastic. And I would get like two of the girls, they would come in. And like, I couldn't get dressed because I had one arm. I couldn't use this in any way for a couple of years. And they'd help me get dressed. So I'd have my swimsuit on, but they'd help me get everything off, and they would literally walk side by side and walk me into the swimming pool. And then I'd be up and down the pool doing my pool walking, on my exercises. And that was months. That was probably about 6 months of doing that, I'd say. But it was the only thing I could do. It was literally the only, as in like physically, sport wise. I had set my mind on doing the Cork Marathon, as in like the 10 kilometre, the walk. The December after, which was literally 6 months after I got out of the national rehab, the marathon was, I was like, I'm doing this, with my walking stick. So, and like, stupidly I did, and then I was in pieces. I was absolutely in bits, and I shouldn't have. And in a sense, it was actually probably the best thing that happened to me, because it just told me, okay, just because you can get around the shops with your little walking stick and your crutch and stuff, you can't attempt these things yet. So I, started working then. I think it was then really I was like, okay, you need to do exactly what they're telling you. So I went in and I was doing the pool walking, and then I was trying to swim. And trying to swim with one arm and one leg is a bit difficult. And there's no videos out there. There's no coach that can teach it. So I'd have like this hand now, right? I'd have it on my belly. And then I was like, trying to swim with this hand. And I had one leg going, and then the other one was just kind of flopping behind. So like, but it was like a challenge. And in fairness to people who were in the pool at the time, they were looking, they were like, how far did you get today? And I was like, I went halfway up the pool, and so like I was setting myself challenges then, and I was like, okay, I need to do a full length. Can I do a full length, with this? And I was calling it the Finding Nemo technique. It was so funny to probably watch me. But I got there, and I kept at it, and I didn't stop. And then that one length became 10 lengths. That 10 lengths became 100 lengths. And I remember saying to one of the guys, and I was like, I'm going to swim the Ironman distance. And he kind of looked at me, and he was like, right, Jesus, she's really after banging her head. And so I was like, I'm going to come down. I was like, on Saturday, I said, I've added it up. It's this many lengths to the pool. I said, it's going to take me about 4 hours, but I said, I need a challenge. I need to do something. So they were like, fine. So like, I was off swimming away. No, I'd have to swim 10 lengths to the swimming pool, and I'd have to stop. I'd have to rest for a second, turn around, and then do another 10 and stop, so I couldn't do it continuously. But I had little drinks with me. I had little energy, little kind of running jellies I normally would use. And I set myself the challenge, and as I said, I actually can't remember, but it was definitely over 4 hours.
You did it.
And I did it, but it was just, I needed something, and I just needed to do something. And like eventually then when I could use the two arms, it was quite funny, because like I actually was like off balance. I had no idea what I was doing. So like then I was maybe swimming 8 lengths of the pool with 2 arms, and then the last 2 I'd have to rest the arm because I was getting tired. So I'd swim the last 2 with 1 arm. And again, like the people in the pool were well used to me, so they didn't. So every now and then you would see someone and just looking, going, "What is she doing?" But yeah, so like I that was my first big kind of, you can do it. This is my, like, you've put the work in, you've done what you're meant to do for once in your life. So I use that then with cycling as well. So obviously cycling, I wasn't too keen on getting back on the bike. But it was the only thing I could do. So what I did was I borrowed someone's bike, and I went up to the scene of the accident, and I cycled up and down that road. And I was like, if I'm going to get flashbacks, because I had no memory. The only feeling and memory I have of that day really is just this feeling of being cold. It's a weird, it's more an emotion. But I had no flashbacks. There was nothing ever coming to me. I was waking up with night terrors in the middle of the night, waking up in bogs of sweat, but I was never remembering these nightmares and things that I was having. And again, I do think my brain was protecting me. It was just, we're not letting you remember. Um, but I went up to the scene and I cycled up and down that road for 10 minutes and nothing happened. No flashbacks, nothing. And I went, right, that's it. You're not living in fear. You have to get back out there and do it. And I had no choice because I knew so many other parts of my life were gone that day and things that I'd never get back. And I think I was going around carrying in this little bag the Ice Ultra and the Cork City Marathon. And I was like, I am going to get back there. And I was like, and if I don't, I don't care, but I'm going to try and do it. So the only way I could do it was swimming or cycling. So got back on the bike. I joined a local cycling club. And in fairness, they were the West Cork cycle group, and they were absolutely fantastic. They were so good to me. I was incredibly slow because my femur was smashed. I just, every time I was on a hill, even though there was a rod put down inside the bone, keeping it all together, it was just the pain. And I won't lie to you, to this day, if I'm cycling on a hill, I still get that feeling. Running up hills, you know, hiking. Hiking is fine, and if I'm running with poles, I can do all that once I have poles, once I have something to take that strain off. But that was what I needed to do. I needed to get back on the bike, and I needed to face that fear because I was scared. There's nothing like, have I done some absolutely crazy stuff since? Yes, but I'm still human, and I was so nervous, and I was kind of on my own. My marriage had broken down at that stage, and I just needed focus. And I was saying, right, I was like, I can't, just because you're on your own now, you can't keep living in this horrible bubble of fear.
No, you
So
have
I
to
think by getting on the
keep
bike,
living for yourself. You have to keep living the life because it's
yeah,
you, and especially I suppose it's very sad to hear that your marriage broke up, especially at that very difficult time in your life. But I think when you end up being on your own, you realize that there is nobody else to live for, and you have to
yeah,
keep doing these things because this is the person that you care about the most. It's you. And
yeah,
especially after being through all the things that you've been through, you kind of had to give yourself a bit of a perk, a bit of a kick in the ass, and just be like,
yeah.
well, let's just go.
But I think in a sense, it's like the not being able to use the wheelchair. It made me walk. The fact that I was on my own, I couldn't feel sorry for myself because, there was no one there to, have an old whinge and moan at it. So it was just get on with it.
Yeah.
And that's always my attitude anyway. But, I was like, and like, don't get me wrong, if something happened, I'd be sad and I'd allow myself to be sad. And the next day I'd say, right, you get your butt out that door now and you do whatever it is that you're meant to do. But I think when you're on your own, you fight that a little bit more.
Hmm.
And like as I said, I was scared, I was nervous, there was so many things going on. But I'm incredibly, now looking back at it, and I'm so proud of myself, and I'm so happy that I didn't give up. And I think it was just that sporty attitude. I think anybody involved in, whether you're playing GAA, whether you're running or you're out skiing, it doesn't matter what you're doing. I think if you have that mentality that you have to put the work in, and if you put the work in, you'll see the results. And that's the way I looked at my whole recovery. I always said it was like step by step, checkpoint by checkpoint. It was get to the next mark, get to the next mark. And that's what my recovery, like I had no idea. Like I knew my life had spinned completely on a different axis. I had no idea where I was going or what I was going to do. So I think focusing on this just kept me distracted. Um, I knew I was going down these roads. I had no idea where these roads were going to lead me, but I just kept going. But
Trusting the process,
but yeah, as I
trusting
said,
that yeah, that it's gonna bring you somewhere that you are supposed to be, I
exactly.
suppose. Yeah. And whose idea was it to run the Cork Marathon with the surgeon who saved your life? Was it? Did you come up
Let's
with
see.
this idea together?
Yeah, so like Dr. Jason was obviously he was local in the area, so I would have known him, who he was, and wouldn't have known him personally. Um, but after the accident, I was, I think maybe 2 years later, I was up at the Cork City Marathon. I was a friend was running, so I just kind of went, okay, well, I get the heebie. What's going to happen if I go up here? So I just went up, and it was grand. But I saw him, and I went over, and we were chatting, and like I remember he was just like grabbed my arm, and he was like, "Oh my god, it's still there," you know. And so like we were chatting away for ages, and I kind of had bumped into him a few times, since like after the accident, you know. And I think for him, he was delighted to see that I was, trying to get back and do all these things. But we were both doing this, it was like a TV series for like for road traffic accidents. And again, the majority, it was for Virgin One, and it was during COVID. So we were all filming separately. And it was afterwards, he rang and he was saying, "Oh, I heard you were doing your part today." And we were just chatting away. And I was saying, "Okay, Dr. Jason," I said, come February, I'm going to get back, and I'm going to do the ice ultra. I said, I've no idea how far I'm going to get or what's going to happen. I said, I'm going back. But I said, the following June, I said, the Cork Marathon is on. And I said, I'm doing it. I said, it'll be 6 years to the day of the accident. And I said, I'm doing that race. So he was so happy. And I said, look, he was I think he's the on-site doctor there for that race. Normally every year he manages all the ambulance crew and everything. So I was saying to him, I said, look, is there any chance you run in the last couple of kilometres with me? I said, because it would mean something so special. I said, here I am doing the race that I never, I just never thought I'd be able to do, and that it was nearly taken away from me. And I said, to be able to do it with the man, I said, like one of the people that kept me alive, I said, would be just amazing. So I won't lie to you, by the end of the conversation, I had him convinced to do the marathon with me. The poor man had never ran a marathon in his life. He's married with 5 kids. He has an incredibly busy job. He was volunteering with the West Cork Rapid Response, and here I am going, come on, let's do a marathon. So he did, and he put the work in, and he trained, and we met up a few times, and we trained together. So yeah, it was my idea, because I knew that day, if I had the ice ultra done, and if I had the Cork City Marathon done, that little bag I was going around carrying around, that was, my whole life, let's say, the only 2 parts of my whole life that I didn't want to give up on. And I could finally let that go, and I could finally move on then and live the rest of my life, not knowing where I was going to go, but, at least I could go on and live. So for me, to run in Cork, absolutely amazing, fantastic. That's where I'm from. But to do it with him, it was, like, and I was saying, okay, am I going to have this big boohoo moment when I go over the finish line? I didn't. I had just this feeling of, it was like somebody just took an absolute brick off my chest. This weight had been lifted. I had done the 2 things that I had signed up to do. And I think I was like a little child. I was like, nobody's taking them off me. I'm going to do these. And like, I think we were over 5 hours or something. And I was just so happy to do it. And like, since then, I may have challenged him to do a few more things. I think I warned him. I said, whatever you do now, I said, if you get a call out now, I said, and it's, some mad psycho like me, I said, just leave them die. I said, because I said, they'll have you running up mountains, they'll have you skiing across the Arctic. But no, he's absolutely brilliant. But I've met the ambulance crew. There's so many people I've met who were there that day afterwards. And it's so like, and if I can ever give back to them, and it was to fundraise for them. I always wanted to fundraise for them, and just to say thank you. So there was loads of different reasons, but that day, I won't lie to you, it was just, it kind of was like, it was all exciting, because I was like, okay, you finally said goodbye to live part 1. You now need to look at live part 2 and figure out what you're going to do. But then it wasn't about being scary, or it wasn't about being, I still didn't know, I had no idea, but that kind of scariness that, that not knowing, that apprehension, it kind of started turning into something a bit more exciting. And I was like, I wonder what will happen. I wonder, I was like, do you know what? No, I'm going to see what this is like. I'm going to do this. So it genuinely, that day, I think once that day was done, it just helped me move on so much. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
amazing.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing and so emotional to do that with the person, as you said, the person who saved your life.
Yeah.
Just absolutely incredible. And so then um you did so many crazy things. Like I must say, you're amazing to do. Like for a person who just said, I don't like the cold. And she goes off and crosses the Arctic spine and runs across Lapland. Like it's absolutely, it's so mad. Like I hate cold and I'm not going anywhere near the freaking snow and stuff. Like it's absolutely amazing. How do you choose these races? Because I know you've done the Lapland twice, because you DNF'd the first year with
Yeah.
hypothermia, and then you came back and you finished it. Then the Kyrgyzstan, um,
Yeah.
you did so many weird things. Like you ran, oh, there's Namibia, yes? Is it Namibia desert?
Yeah. Namibia. Yeah.
Yeah, so 40 degrees, and then Lapland, which is minus 38 or it's 40. Tell me what, how do you choose these races? Is it the toughest, the tougher the better? Or is it you find things that, like I know we were talking yesterday about, choosing things that scare you. Would that be the case with
Yeah.
those races, or how do you choose them?
I think definitely there's that element. I like that. That scary, not knowing factor as well. That side does appeal to me. But I think it was when I did when I actually did the Amazon before the year before the accident, and I had signed up to the ice. I was kind of saying, my God, okay, if I run in the jungle and if I run in the snow in the Arctic, and I was like, because at the time the MDS was incredibly popular, and I was like, I'm going to run the desert. So like my plan was to run on every terrain this planet had to offer. So whether it was grass, trail, concrete road, snow, sand, anything I could find. And I also wanted to experience all the, for some reason I don't know, wanted to experience all the extremes Mother Nature could literally throw at you. So whether it was incredible heat, wind, rain, snow, cold temperatures. So I was looking for races that did that, and you know, to set myself a challenge. So like as you said, like the first time I did the ice ultra was the running one. I did that and I made the short course, which was 215 kilometers,
Oh,
and
of
the
course.
long course was 230. I know, yeah. There was 15 kilometers between the two, and that was probably one of the most tormenting things in the world. So I went back. I think it was 2 years afterwards, and I did it again, and I got the long course with Kyrgyzstan, the one in the mountains, which was just the most craziest place I've ever been to. Absolutely beautiful. It was just like these beautiful, like there was wild horses running around the place. There was it was untouched by man. It was just one of these simply, like you could hear the water roaring because the glaciers were melting that time of year in July. So that water was roaring as it came down the mountains, and it was just the most beautiful place ever. But the first year I did it, I fell down a ravine and I fell off, like it was like a 40-foot ravine, and nearly killed myself and got lost. Like, there was a group of us all got lost. There was major issues that year, and like there was no signs there. They had a big long story, but we all got lost, and there was about five of us, and like rescue crews were coming in for us, and I was in the forest at night when there was bears and wild boar, and that was the one place at night you did not want to be. And I remember kind of going, okay, I need to get the hell out of here. Like, so I have no idea how I got back up that mountain, but it was to get clearing so the tracker would work and I could actually get some help. and I got help. So I was taken out of that race 3 days into it. And as disappointing as it was, they had to, like, it was just things were going wrong. And for everybody's safety, they had to take certain groups of people out because they just couldn't manage the next day if the trackers didn't work again. So I went back the following year and I did it again. You know? So I'm one of those people. And I think I've always said I'd probably give a race 3 attempts, and I'd probably give it a go. And again, it's only if I know I can, and I know I'm not going to, do something silly to myself and put the race organisation at risk in any way. But the Namibian desert, then that was 250 kilometers, and like on the first day, I got chased by a wild dog. I jumped over a viper, which was probably the most venomous just literally on the way back down to the camp. And on the day 4, I ended up like shaking a scorpion out of my shoe, and they were the one things that I was so terrified because they were the tiniest little creatures. They're probably one of the most deadliest little creatures. But I think I was so, I was so exhausted. I remember shaking my shoe and like seeing one fall out, and I was like, oh, okay, and I went off to do something else. I've since gone ahead and I got a tattoo of a scorpion to remind me of that day. But it was. I don't plan on putting myself in danger in these races. I want to get through the race. I want to experience what I can see. Like the Namibian desert was probably one of the most beautiful places ever. Like which when people said it to me, I was like, desert, beautiful, or, what planet are you living on? But there was mountains coming out of it. Like it was, and the animals you'd see just roaming around. It was simply amazing. But yeah, so I kept looking for different things. Unfortunately, sometimes I was lucky, other times I was very unlucky. There was, things went wrong. I got sick. There was, got injured. There's loads of things that happened. But it never stopped me. I just kept going, and I was like, okay, well, I wonder what's next. And I was saying that to you when I was looking at the spine. Like the race director had been at one of the races I had been. He told me about the idea. So he'd planted the seed about like 2 years before the first race ever went ahead. And when that went ahead, I just couldn't. I was glued to it. And I was like, okay. I was like, skiing. I was like, well, I can ski. I said, maybe this is something, that I won't be too slow at and I can get through. And Kevin Leahy down in Kerry he was the only contestant at last in the very end in the first year. I had no idea who he was, and I just said, okay, I'll chance my arm, and I reached out to him, and in fairness, he was incredibly helpful. Because I was like going, I'm not a fast runner now. I'm not one of those people, I'll be one of those to just finish it if I can. So I signed up for the small race. And again, it was probably one of the most craziest things I've ever done. It was pulling a sled. And I'm not that big. And when you're trying to pull a sled up a mountain on skis, it's a bit difficult, And the year we were there, the first year we were doing that, the temperatures crept up, which was really freaky. So what happened was even the day before the race started, it rained. So all the snow got compacted into ice. So we were going around on skis on pure ice. And so we were all falling, like elbows, knees, hips, everything. And then on day 2, the winds crept up and they were up to about a 4.6, 4.7. It was, or was it actually higher? It was a 4.8. It was just off. I think it was 4.8, they said. Anyway, I have to check that out now for you. But anyway, it was so bad, right, that you would be there and you could just hear it coming towards you, this gust. And all you would say is brace yourself, because first of all, the wind would take you and off you'd go flying. And then you had the pulka, which is the sled, behind you. And then that would swing, and that was like the pendulum and a clock. And that would swing this way, it would swing that way. And every time it went, I was like, okay, here we go. And I would get dragged off. And so it was, the conditions the first year were just, and it wasn't because it was, I think the coldest it got that year was maybe minus 20, maybe minus 25 at night, I'd say. But it was the ice, and it was the fact that none of us had ice crampons and none of us were prepared for it. But I did finish it, and it was amazing. It was absolutely, straight away I was like, that's it, I'm hooked. This pulling a pulk, total survival. And I think that's what I liked about it. I was on my own. So in a sense, yes, it was great when you met up with people en route or if you bumped into them for a little part of the journey, but everything that I had to do to get to the end point, I had to do it myself. So if I wanted water, I had to set up the stove. I had to manage my kit correctly. I had to manage my nutrition correctly. I had to learn how to navigate, which I was shocking at. So there was so many different things in that race, and I think that's what I loved. I just loved all these challenges because it was so new to me. And then this year when I went back, total DNF, ended up getting sick, hypothermia, had to be rescued, complete disaster. But I'd say I was home a week and I had hit the enter button, and I'm going back again in February because I've put the
Because you
training in,
have to
and I
finish it.
know I have to finish this. But again, I'm only doing the middle distance. So, could I go straight for the main? I just think for me that would be completely crazy. I'm just taking it bit by bit, and if I can get the middle distance done, I would be so happy. If I even get to checkpoint one on day three, I would be absolutely delighted. Um, but with those races, it's really every day you're learning, every day you're figuring out something new. It's constantly, the challenges are constantly changing, and like this year the conditions, I think the coldest, well, obviously I was only in it for like 24 hours but it got to -30, but like towards the end of the week, I think there was only a couple of competitors left on the course. It was hitting -38, -40. So it was really, but that's what I wanted and that's what I was prepared for. So for me, it was researching your kit. It was, like if anybody was going anywhere now, chances are I have a complete and absolute outdoor store in my home, like in my front room. The sled is behind the couch. I have nowhere to put it. So if you went around my house now, it is like there's hiking poles over here. There's this thing, like there's stuff everywhere. Um, but I think it was just the challenge of doing that. And the director of the spine, Phil was a polar. He still is a polar explorer, but he's not doing much anymore. But he had done the North Pole, South Pole, Greenland, and I remember sitting down and having chats to him. Well, I went over for a week training with him, and he was telling me about all these adventures he had done, and it was like I was like, "Stop! Please stop telling me! Please stop." Um, so by the time I came back, I was looking at, okay, right, when I get this race done, what can I do next? So then I started looking at Greenland, and doing another big expedition across Greenland because if the cold wasn't enough and the old harsh conditions, throw in a couple of polar bears and just see can you dodge them. So, but I think for me, like with that, it was more about, it wasn't a race. It was more about a personal achievement, a goal, setting a goal, and going out there and just seeing could you do it.
Yeah.
Um, and and I think with me, yes, I nearly died. I actually, sorry, I technically did in and out for about 24 hours. But, you know, it nearly, when you think of it, it took me, like, I can see the irony in it. It took me doing that, or like going through all of that, and then I've gone ahead and I've put myself in all these situations. Um, and it's not because, oh, I nearly died. It's because I suppose I appreciate life, and I truly know how precious life is.
Yeah.
And I want to enjoy it, and I want to experience it as best I can.
Yeah. And I suppose in those moments when you're out there, there is a massive sense of being alive, especially especially when you're on your own, like you say, you're in the blizzard somewhere in the snow, and you know that you're the only person who can manage this, and it's an incredible feeling of, I suppose, understanding that you can do it, and that
Yeah.
you are like, I was talking to Laura O'Driscoll about that when she was cycling across Europe, and it's that feeling of being a badass because you're the you are the person who has to take care of everything, and it's
Yeah.
you do feel so alive. And I remember, I think I read something that you said that I felt absolutely 100% like that. You said, why do I bring myself into those situations that are life threatening? And why can't I just go on holidays and lie on the beach and just enjoy margaritas? And I remember 2 years ago, I ran across Poland and I got stuck in thunderstorms. So I was on top of a mountain in the forest and there was a massive thunderstorm. I was in the center of it. And I remember walking, I am not religious, but by Jesus, I was praying. I'm just like, why?
You were praying to any god.
Yeah, why the fuck am I doing this to myself? Why? Please, please let me survive this. Please let me survive this. And I suppose when you finish, then, and I'd say you can say the same thing. It's just that incredible feeling of being alive and knowing that you can count on
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so true. Like, and as you said, like it's, and like, people have moments like this in their life, doing regular normal stuff as well. But it's when you have that realization, that no one else was there to help you, or doing it for you. You actually had to do it yourself. And if you didn't do it right, you didn't do it correct, there's a very good chance you'd fail, or you wouldn't succeed. And you need to learn that as well. And you have to fail. You have to fail numerous times, because every failure, like, it leads to the next succession. That kind of way. You need those to learn. But it's a lovely feeling. It's just that, God, I've done it. And I normally think it takes a little bit of time for it to sink in. I don't kind of go over the finish. Like, 9 times out of 10, when I'm doing these races, I go over the finish line, I'm ready to collapse. And all I'm doing is like, give me food, you know, someone give me a pizza, I want bread, give me bread and butter. Like, so I'm so exhausted, I'm so tired. And it's probably then you're trying to get home, and then you're trying to get all this stuff done. And it's probably like, normally when I get back from anything like this, I just hide away in the house for 24 hours. And I just, and like at the time, like, another big huge part of my recovery, I suppose, was my dog. I had a German Shepherd, and it killed me being away from him. Like, but as soon as I came back, he was there with me, and I was just so happy with him, and and I just would keep the 24 hours just for the two of us. We might go for an old walk on the beach, or we might, but that was our time, like. And then the next day, I'd reach out to people, or ring people, or meet up and things like that. But I always just needed that time to, I think, to kind of actually absorb what had happened as well, and just kind of say, God, Jesus, you finished it, and be really happy and proud of what you've done and what you've achieved. So it does, but yeah, I do think it takes time. And, like, don't get me wrong, I have those moments like everybody else. You're out there running, or you're doing a trail run, or you're out doing a road run, or you cycle or whatever, and you're like, oh, what the hell am I doing? It's lashing rain, the wind is blowing, here I am, I can't move my leg, this is hurting, or you're going through all this, and you're like going, why can't I go to the spa? Why can't I be happy with that? Or, why can't I just go drinking all the time? And, it's yeah, so but I think all of us do. I think we all have those moments, and I think it's normal just to doubt yourself, and doubt what you're doing in the middle of it. And it's those mind games, but I think in time you learn how to control that. Because I think your mind is always going to try and quit. Your mind will always try to quit first, and it's telling you your body isn't able, and it's telling you that you're not able. And it's like this battle that's constantly going on. And some people might say it's the angel and the devil on your shoulder, but it's this battle, and it's learning to ignore it and just keep pushing on. And And that takes time,
Yeah.
and I think I know I have that and I can do that. So I think no, that's what I'm looking for is challenges that I know that's a strength and I know that's something because I know physically I'll never, I'll never be fast. I'll never, there's certain things I still can't really do. So that's fine. I can deal with all that. But I need to find stuff that I can do in the areas that I know that I'm really, really good at. So but I think you have to go through all that crap. You
Yeah.
have to go through all that pain, all that suffering. As you said, when you were running across Poland that time and that thunderstorm was hitting, that's probably built such resilience in you, just that moment in itself. I think we all need those in life.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. And tell me, would you feel restless if you didn't have anything planned? If you knew that, you know, no, this is life now. I'm just gonna stay in my house and work from home or something, and you didn't have anything planned for the next 12 months. What do you think would be happening inside?
I think straight away I'd be taking off to the mental institution. The men in white coats would be coming to get me. But like I think I I know, let's say that I won't be. No, there's no guarantee, but I know there's a very good likelihood I'm not going to be really able to do a lot of physical stuff for a long time, and it just may be slightly shorter than you. Who knows? We don't know yet. Um, but I'm forever planning on. I've backups. I've backups for everything. So if I know that I can't run, let's say I really badly hurt my leg or something, and I can't run or I can't do any crazy running challenges for the year, let's say, or hiking or anything like that, I'll be okay, it's time to go kayaking. All right, find something in kayaking, or go sailing. So I because I had to come through it in the other side. um, I had to build those backups in to help me recover. So now I know if I can't do all these kind of crazy running or walking or hiking and things like that, I know I have all these other little things in my back pocket. They're all sitting there waiting for me. And I think it's if you're somebody who loves the outdoors, and I just love, like I love nothing more than being out in nature. For me, being stuck at home behind a computer all day long, I would go off my game completely. Um, I think that's why I nearly always have a dog by my side because they get you out. You're out in the fresh air. You're doing things with them. Um, yeah, I yes, there will be times like financially I may not be able to afford to do a big crazy adventure. There's like I'm putting everything I have into Greenland. I am putting every single last bloody thing I have, and which people might say is crazy, um, but for me it's not. For me, it's about doing something that 10 years ago, and this is my 10-year anniversary treat to myself. Um, I wanted something and I couldn't do. I was hoping to do it this year, but I couldn't do it this year, so I had to do it next year. But I needed something to mark, and I think it's something when you go. And I've spoken to people with brain injuries as well. Like normally, what they say is you need to celebrate that day, the day of your accident. You don't need to look at that day as it's a sad day or what I lost or feel sorry for yourself. It's a day you should be happy. It's a day you should be incredibly
Celebrating life.
grateful that you're alive. Exactly. And so, but the best part about it, Alicia, is the fact that I'm now only 10 years old. I am not 47 anymore. I am only 10. So I get to reclaim my youth. But, so for me to mark that, I wanted to mark it in a special way. I didn't need, like, to be having a party or anything like that, but I needed to mark it myself. And for me, the fact that I've loved doing these little races in the Arctic, and like, even though I've probably raced there 4 times in total, I've probably been in the Arctic area, let's say in the polar areas, in total about 9 times,
Wow.
going over and training and stuff. And it's just the most. I can't understand why I love going there so much. But with the cold, you get the kit right. There's so many things you can do. So when I knew the 10 years was coming up, I was like, okay, my way of marking it was going to chance doing a crossing. And I think if you read any of those books, like if you even read like Tom Crean, or you're reading books about Shackleton or Roald Amundsen, and like I'm currently listening to a book about the North Pole at the moment. So like I love that idea of exploring, and I don't know, the whole planet has been explored. The only part that hasn't is the sea. I think it was at 80% of the sea. We still have no idea what's underneath it. So it's just that feeling of, and maybe it's just a childish. It's going back to your childhood. It's that feeling of exploring. It's discovering something new, that sense of adventure. So I think, I'll always have it. It may have to change and adapt to my life, or like whatever is wrong with me physically at the time. Um, but yeah, but I think it's, you know, if somebody said, okay, you can't even go and walk the dog, yes, total insanity would take place. It's, I need, I need to be out, but I think you just recharge from being out there,
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't matter how long it is. And it might be a hard event, and it might be like, over 200 kilometers, but even though you are exhausted, your heart is full and your soul is full, because being in nature and being with yourself for so long, it's it's something special. And I know that many of us, like, it might be hard at times to be with yourself because you have to deal with certain things that come up. But there is nothing better than being on your own somewhere, having all these chats and with yourself, as weird as it sounds, but just going through all of that on your own. It's so good for the soul. It's just so good for the soul.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like it's like I've had, as you said, like I've had full blown conversations. I have solved the whole entire world's problems out on these races. You know, everything goes through your head. But yeah, it's just that lovely. And I think then when you do bump into somebody, if you do manage to meet somebody at a checkpoint, or something, you're like, oh God, are you real? Am I hallucinating again? Are you a real person? So and it's lovely, and I do genuinely love being able to like share part of anything I do. Like if there's somebody there, and I've met some absolutely amazing people, throughout these races. And what you do tend to find is that there's a small selection of people. It's not a huge pile of us, especially when you start going into Arctic and polar stuff. The group gets small. But you tend to meet up a lot. So you might
Hmm.
meet up at a training, or you might meet up at the next race, or they're telling you about the next race that's happening over here, and so it's lovely. And for me, even knowing, let's say if you and me were doing a race together, we may never see each other from start to finish throughout the race. But I know you're doing it, and that in itself, you're going, oh, great, she's doing it, lovely. I might see her beforehand, I might see her afterwards. And I don't need to be there with someone all the time. I think it is good to be on your own. I think it is good because I think that's how you train. That's how you train your brain to fight when everything is telling you you need to quit. Everything hurts, it's dark, it's cold, there's a monster behind that tree behind you or something. So when your brain is telling you all this, you need that time on your own. I think it's very valuable too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so you said that the Greenland is your 10th year anniversary, but that's next year. But next week, you are going for a massive adventure as well. You're gonna go up to K2 base camp, which is
Yeah.
not an easy walk. So is there, do you? So that's the first. So all of the other things were like the desert and the snow and everything. So would K2 base camp be part of you going to explore again different scenery? So go and like that's incredible. Like K2 base camp is like that's just another world.
I, yeah, it looks like it. When I was going to do Kilimanjaro, and I was saying I'll do that. Something I wanted to get done, and to be honest with you, I was doing it just to tick something off a list. Um, so when I heard about K2, within 2 seconds, I had changed over straight away because I was like, no, that's more me. That's pick the worst mountain on the whole entire world that you could possibly try and climb. But I have watched, like, since I was 12 years of age, I've been obsessed with mountains. Loved, watching any movies about them, reading any books about them. Um, so, like, I remember when Pat Falvey, when he made that documentary, the Summit. Um, and like that, just to me, it was just crazy what happened. And so when he rang me and he was like, I'm thinking of putting K2 on the list of adventures. He was like, would you be interested? And he said, a small group of us going up, we're going to tell. I was like, absolutely, put me down, and it was the challenge of doing it because I've never been, away hiking that long or at that altitude. I've been to 4,000 meters. This will be bringing me up to 5,400. So again, I wanted to see, you know, what way my body was going to react. It was something funny I was saying to someone there last week. But like initially, before I did any crazy things, I had to keep checking with consultants. So I had to ring up my neurosurgeon. I was like, do you know if you're going to like, -40 with a brain injury? I was like, that's something I should be worried about. Anything just going to go boom on me, or will I be okay? It's the same when I was going back scuba diving. I was like, do you know, with the old pressure. So like, like with diving, I can go back scuba. They were just saying, look, can you go to 40 meters? Yes, you can, but look, that's when your risks go really, really, really high.
Yeah.
So I stay 20 meters or above, and that's, to be honest with you, that's where the warmer the warmer water is. Um, Plus, is where all the marine life. That's what I'm there to see. Um, so for everything, like it's the same at altitude. When I rang about going to altitude, a lot of people acquire brain injuries at altitude. So for me going, so that is the thing. Like with me, are my risks way higher? Huge, absolutely. My risks are so much higher than anybody else's. But I'm not stupid. I check it out with my consultants. I do whatever they tell me to do, and I know, okay, if it comes to a certain point, I have to say, do you know what? No, this is great, but I'm going to have to quit, or I'm going to have to stop and turn back. I wouldn't be stupid. I'm not out there looking for death. But for me, yes, it is more of a challenge, and I do have to check things out. So I knew going up to this height, I was like, oh Christ, I've done four. I was like, maybe I can do five, and you just wonder, can you go up another little bit? Um, Plus, I think it's the only place in the planet where you get to stand with, I think, four mountains over 8,000 meters just in one small valley. And like I've only seen photographs of it now so far, and I've watched every documentary on YouTube, and I've watched everything I possibly can on it, and it just looks, it's rough, it's rugged. Some parts of it, even though it's rock, the rock is on a glacier, and like for me, I'm even trying to get my head around that. I think it's the largest glacier outside Greenland and Antarctica in the whole planet, just in the Cairngorm mountain range, and so for me, like, it wasn't like a running challenge, but it was still a challenge. There was, all these different things I've never experienced before, and I now get to go and experience them and see what they're like. And yes, there's that physical challenge element, but it's more about the experience, and it's more about, you know, I think personally it's probably just going to be one of those places where, you probably won't be able to speak when you're standing under those mountains, and And I think, knowing that K2 is probably, it is probably one of the worst mountains out there, and it's the most
Most
deadliest mountain
dangerous.
out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we have the Limerick climber Ger MacDonald, who died there unfortunately, in 2008. But we will be going to his memorial. There's a lovely memorial there for him, so we'll get to see that. And I know Pat would have been good friends with him, so there's that lovely side to it as well, that we get to go and celebrate that man's
Yeah.
life, and like to see where, like for me, because I've never been there, and to be able to see that mountain. And I think it's 1 in 4 die going up that, so it's, but I can understand the draw. I can understand, you know, just from looking at pictures, it just looks amazing. Now, don't be worried. I have absolutely no intention of going up it. I've done no training. Probably take me about 8 years. I need to sell my house financially. I can't afford to do it. Now, if there's anybody out there who'd like to sponsor me, I'll go 2K2 for you. I'll get up to
We're going to
6,000
attach the
meters.
link somewhere below.
I know. Please press the button.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's something different. It's yeah, but like I think with me, I'm forever torn. I'm torn between like land and sea. So I'm also, there's a lot of stuff I do at sea, and so I'm forever. It's like this forever battle going on in my head between both, and on both I have my little backups. So I know if physically anything happens or goes wrong, or you know, then I have these little backups in place. But yeah, I think it's just about experiencing, you know, different places. And I've been, yes, look what happened to me was crap, right? It was beyond shite. Right? Let's call a spade a
Yes.
spade.
Let's just agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I could sit there and wallow in my own self pity. I could be, feeling sorry. And I'm so happy I didn't, and I'm so happy I pushed on. And now for me, life is about just getting, and look, yes, was I lucky? I got and people again, yeah, think I got millions. No, I didn't, unfortunately. I would love to say I did. But I got a small portion of money, and I could have bought a big, massive house. I could have bought this, that, and the. I didn't. That money was spent on adventures, and the last bit of that money is being spent on Greenland. And I couldn't care less, because that money sitting in the bank, what's that going to do for
wouldn't
me?
bring you happiness. It wouldn't bring you what all these
No,
adventures brought
and if
you.
I need, yeah, and like I kind of, I made that choice a long time ago, and I was like, "Do you know what? No, I've bought whatever I need to get. This is what's going to keep me going." I was like, all I can do, like I've no problem. Like, yes, was I very career driven, and you know, would I work my butt off in anything? Absolutely. I could do that down a super value, down around the corner. I don't care. I will work. If I need money, I will go and I will work. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. I was saying we could be, I could be hit by a bus tomorrow. COVID hit. Well, I think initially we all, I think everybody, like, just for those initial couple of weeks, we were all going, oh God, what's going to happen? Anything could happen in life. And the way I looked at it is, I want to live. I want to experience every single God. And I was lucky that I had the money to do that. And for, as I said, anybody else who's probably involved in, finance would probably tell me what a fool I am. But I don't care. I've loved every single minute. I've enjoyed it. You know, if I wanted to go on and do the North Pole, the South Pole, which would be an ultimate dream, which I'll forever chase, may never get there. But that's something you're looking at sponsorship for. That's something, not a hope. That those things are so incredibly expensive. But I feel if I have Greenland behind me, if I have that in my back pocket, if I am then going looking for sponsors, if I am going to see can I do the North or South Pole, I've that done. And I was willing to put the last I had into that. And I think if I was going looking at sponsors now, they'd be saying, sure, who are you? What have you done? They'd.
Well, I
But I
survived
think,
quite a lot and I did a good few things.
but probably won't die, or maybe I will die, but I'll come back again. Don't worry. But but I do think having something like that in my back pocket is, again, sure I could have that in my back pocket, and it still may never happen, but that's okay too.
Yeah.
Um, just to be able to, as I said, live, enjoy life, see like I've been so incredibly lucky what I have seen. Um, I've seen the bad side as well. I've seen how climate has been affected. I've seen, you know, I've seen things change. I've seen things change in the Arctic over the last 8 years. I've definitely seen how things have been affected. So yes, there is a little bit of sadness, but it also brings awareness about these areas. And it's, I do consider myself absolutely so lucky. Um, it's a pity, like, I wasn't any good. If I was actually good at any of them, it would be great. Because people normally hear you've done all this, and I'm like, yeah, I've done all this, but I'm back at the pack now, lads. I'm one of those ones that will just finish. But in these races, the back of the pack is the best place to be. It is where you have the most fun. It's where you meet people, because we're all there to get through something, to get through that challenge. So chances are you're going to meet people, you're going to be chatting with people, you're going to have a bit of fun, you're going to have a bit of a laugh. If you're up at the top, you're there, you're racing, you're watching every second, every moment, which I have ultimate respect for people who do. Please don't get me wrong. I love it, and I love watching them, and I absolutely adore it. But they don't get to experience what I get to experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get to see at the fun side,
Yeah.
of putting yourself through pain and
Yeah.
horrific
And
things.
yeah.
But there
And
is that nice fun moment.
yeah. Tell me, if you were, what would you say now, 10 years after the accident, 10 years after your life changed completely? What would you say to yourself from before the accident?
As in, like,
What would be the advice
right,
to the
before,
Olivia before the
oh,
accident?
before, I would have said, put that phone away, stop working so hard. We're all replaceable. Every single goddamn one of us are replaceable when it comes to employment. Um, I would have said, focus on living. Just live, and, yes, that promotion or the next, career move will be great, but it's not going to bring you joy. Find that road, that path that will bring you down to living, seeing the planet and enjoying. Obviously without going through all the horrific stuff. That would be really nice. but no, I definitely would have, like, and I loved it. I genuinely loved it at the time, but I was working and I made so many sacrifices. There was like something on and I wouldn't go because this was happening. And so, like, now would I have done it? Like, if you asked me now, if I was back in that position, knowing what I know now, absolutely not. I wouldn't do it. So if I could tell myself something, it would be, you know, put the phone down, put the laptop down, enjoy life.
Yeah. And I think it's
Enjoy it
something,
as best you can.
yeah, I think it's something that we can all learn from. Um, because we do hear stories of people who go through traumatic experiences like that, who are near death. We very often hear only after that do they begin to live, because they realize the
Yeah,
value of life and the value of their happiness. And I think the more stories of those people we hear, the more we realize that we could probably go out there and enjoy life a little bit more without going
yeah.
through traumatic experiences.
Hopefully not. No, we keep our fingers crossed now. But no, it's true, and I really, as I said, like, it did. Like, I would have said I was enjoying life, and I was, but I wasn't. I really know I can look back, and I wasn't enjoying it. I was trying to get to this point or that point or do this, That wasn't enjoying life. Now I enjoy life. Now there's days I go down to the beach in the lashing rain. And it is, you know, I enjoy it. Every, every morning I wake up, genuinely, I'm never in never in bad humor in the morning. Now someone could piss me off during the day and I could be in bad mood. But I wake up every morning and I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm here, I'm it took me dying to understand what gratitude is, understand what living is. But now I have all them, which I'm so happy, And as I said, I'm not going to lie, I still have no idea what road I'm traveling on. Maybe I'll figure it out. You know what? Maybe I won't, and I really don't care anymore. I want that road to take me on adventures. I want that road to fill me with happiness. I want that road to help me understand and appreciate the fact that I'm here, I'm alive, and I get to do all these lovely things.
That is so beautiful.
Hopefully I will live for another 40 years. That would be really nice. I think I've gone through enough crap now.
And
40 now would be nice.
whatever road your life brings you to, I think we will all be watching, and we will all be really interested to see what else can you do. And for now, we'll be waiting for you to come back from K2 and then go do the spine and then go and do the Greenland. And yeah, it will be absolutely incredible to hear your stories from Greenland as well. So I hope I'll be able to speak to you again when you come back next year.
Absolutely,
Olivia,
I can tell you how I wrestled a polar bear.
Heidi, please don't. Please don't. Oh God, Olivia, it was an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and I'm honored. I'm really. I think everybody who listens to this episode will go out there and will look at life a little bit different, because it's amazing to hear how positive you are. After all the things that happened, you could have go down the other way, but you're just
Yeah.
you're just incredible, and I think you're super inspiring, and yeah, I'm really honored to have had the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Well, you are more than welcome. And look, if there's one thing I will say to people is, no matter what it is you're going through in life, whether it's something physical, emotional, it doesn't matter what it is. Don't let that define you. Do not let that define you. That is not who you are. You are more than that. You can come out of that. Put the work in and you will get there. But don't let that be who you are. Don't let it define you.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Thank you. And that's a wrap. You've been listening to Chasing Rabbits. I hope you enjoyed your time spent with me. And if you did, please share it with a friend. Spread the love as much as you can. We will see you soon. And in the meantime, keep chasing rabbits.